U.S. travel during the Thanksgiving holiday weekend will soar 11% this year, according to AAA. And you know what that means, of course, bumper-to-bumper traffic on the highways and delays and long lines in the airports. Well, our next guest says the solution to our travel woes all year long is privatization and deregulation. He says the overall cost of inefficiencies in the transportation sector due to government policies exceeds $100 billion annually. Clifford Winston is author of The Last Exit: Privatization and Deregulation of the U.S. Transportation System. He's also a senior fellow of economic studies at the Brookings Institution. And thank you for joining us today, Clifford.
Thank you for having me.
So in the book,
good to be here.
Thanks. And you talk a lot about some of the experiments that could make our transportation system more efficient, which I think is interesting because you're not necessarily recommending full-scale privatization of everything on the roadways and everything in the air. But you are saying that there are, in fact, some states and cities are actually doing some of these things. One of the items you recommend is Privatejitneys.
Yeah, oh, certainly. That would definitely be, an interesting way to see if public transit, which we have now, could be much more effective in having private transit companies try to, self-select into particular niches and be effective providers of service there, particularly for poor people, actually.
And that's an interesting point. I wanted you to get into a little bit of why the private jitney. What is it about bus service that isn't working?
Well, the current problems with the existing system, not just bus service, but almost throughout the whole area of transportation, is it's so rigid. It's determined by regulations. Anytime you want to change anything, there are major hearings, there are regulations you got to go through. It takes forever to respond to any changes in the market conditions, and even then it's always so politically driven. Private company, if they've got free entry and exit, can respond very quickly. And in the case of buses, you'll be on routes forever where you have very low load factors. Hardly anybody uses it. But try abandoning a route sometime, and you'll get all this objections to doing it. Yet at the same time, you want to serve a new route, that can be difficult to do too.
Now, and the interesting thing, you point this out in your book, that with the recession, the usage of mass transit has risen dramatically, and yet those same mass transit organizations are having a serious crisis financially.
That's right. I mean, that's sort of the paradox of transit, that more people use it. But remember, this is something that people don't appreciate, is that transit's heavily subsidized. So people really aren't coming close to paying the cost that they're incurring when they use transit. At the same time, you'll get additional riders. They'll strain the capacity of the systems we have, and that'll sort of increase costs. So the combination of sort of relatively less revenues and increasing subsidies are required for people who use it, and then adding more cost to the system just puts financial strains on the existing systems.
And let's talk a little bit about congestion pricing. That's something that the mayor and the president of this company, the owner of this company, Bloomberg, has talked about quite a bit. Something in this city we have heard quite a bit about, but actually charging more during peak travel times.
That's right. And, people have historically reacted to that, people don't like that. They call that something that will be benefit to the rich people. But we have now learned from experiments in other highways in other parts of the country that, anybody on a given day may want to pay a little more to get to a destination faster. And the way this thing would work is that you have various lanes, and some would have a charge, and you'd have fewer people on that lane and you'd be able to travel faster. Other lanes you wouldn't have that charge, but then obviously you'd be subjected to some congestion. And you have people who then can have their preferences for what kind of price and service they want, and that generally improves things all the way around.
And let's talk quickly about the next thing. Everyone hates on the holidays to wait in the airport. They hate the delays that are associated with airline travel overall. We've seen some things about fines if you're on the tarmac for certain times that are fines to the airlines. What else can be done there? I know you talk about a next generation air traffic system.
Well, again, what the theme of, I think, where we're going with privatization is both trying to use the price mechanism to influence behavior, but also allow people to exhibit their preferences for the kind of service they want. And then the more rapid introduction of technology try to help solve these problems. Both can work, particularly certainly at airports. We have congestion pricing, would certainly help at airports, clearing out runways, and obviously then introduction of new technologies that would enable planes to go faster, actually closer together, would reduce delays. And that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg as far as we know it now.
All right, Clifford. Well, we'll see if some of these things ever get put into place. Certainly, the book is an interesting read. Clifford Winston from the Brookings Institution joining us today, author of the book, The Last Exit. We'll stay